Hello musicians, this is Corey Taylor from SkilledMusician.com, where we're helping musicians improve. Thank y'all so much for checking out this video today. Now, today's video is gonna be a little different. We're in a different environment. I'm not sitting at the keyboard playing because we wanna talk about something that we don't talk about as musicians, and that's money. How do we handle our money? Now, we spend so much time preparing our craft, making sure we're the best musicians possible, but we don't spend as much time making sure we're the best money managers as possible. So I have so many of my buddies, so many of my friends that I've come up with that are struggling to make ends meet right now because we didn't handle our money properly. So listen, I brought in a financial expert to talk with us. Her name is Miriam Lewis. She owns the company Destined for Wealth. She's an executive at Clorox. She actually owns her own store in downtown Atlanta. She's phenomenal. Does seminars and workshops for the past about 7 years or so. So I brought her in to answer some of our questions and just give us some wisdom that we can use in managing our finances. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get started. All right, Miriam, thank you so much for being with us today. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this whole personal finance world and your company, Destined for Wealth?
Sure. Well, thank you, Corey. Thanks for having me today, and I'm glad to be here. So for me, I really started in an untraditional way with finances. I actually was intrigued by the way my mom and other relatives managed their finances, and I began to look at their scenarios and wonder, like, is there a better way to manage finances? And as I looked at that, I began to ask questions. And as I asked questions, and then I would start reading books about finance. And probably by the time I finished college, I started just attending seminars and learning more and more about finance. So I'm the non-traditional finance person. I don't have any certifications in finance. I learned the hard way, trial and error.
Wow.
And also by my own, the things that I've done right and wrong, I've learned from that. And what I took from that is that the things that I learned, and people began to ask me questions. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I began wanting to give more in this area and started conducting seminars of my own and teaching people, just regular people, how to make better financial decisions.
Wow, wow. So when did you actually form your company, Destined for Wealth?
So about 7 years ago, actually.
Wow.
And again, very untraditional form. One of my friends was hosting a cruise and asked me to speak on the cruise. And so after I spoke on the cruise, I came back and I was like, gee, this is really cool. And I could see and it was cool from the aspect of that I could see where lives were changed, families were changed as a result of some of the tools that were taught on that cruise. So, and I wanted to share it more. So I formed my company shortly after returning from the cruise and began to seek opportunities to share.
Wow, wow. So you said earlier that you learned from the scenarios and experiences from your youth. So today, if it's okay, I would like to present some scenarios to you and to see how you respond, okay?
That sounds
All right.
great.
So let's pretend I'm a 18 to 20-year-old musician. I've just graduated high school and I'm playing around town, around the city. I'm just playing. I don't even have a bank account. I've had no financial training, like nothing. So what would be your advice? What should I do? Where do I go from here?
I'd first want to commend you because most 20-year-olds are not thinking about finances. And so thank you for that question as well, because I think it starts right there with wanting to know what to do. And the first thing any person should do when they want to start thinking about finances is think about what's your vision? What are some of the things that you want to accomplish? What are your goals in the short term and long term? What do you want to accomplish in the next year, in the next 12 months? What would you like to accomplish in the next 3 to 5 years? And once you get a vision for what it is you want to accomplish, then it's about making that vision come true. And then putting a plan in place. And every now and then you have to go back to that vision when you want to get off track. And then you want to look at that vision and say, hey, this is important to me. And this is why I'm saving this money. Anytime you have a purpose for something, then it helps you to stick to your plan.
Wow.
So the first thing is to have a vision for your finances.
Vision, okay.
Yes. So after you get a vision for your finances, Charitable giving. And as a Christian, I love to give through the church,
Sure.
and that's my charitable giving. And I believe that that is the very first thing you do with your money after you have a vision for it. You commit to yourself that you're going to become a tither. And once you do that, and what that does for you is it secures the rest of everything else that you have, especially when you're first starting out and you haven't established any bad habits or
Sure.
anything like that. So when you get your first check, just begin to tithe. And I'll tell you a quick story. I'm from Mobile, Alabama, and when I went off to college, I was on work study. And my mom told my pastor back home that Miriam's got a work study job. He called me and he said, "Do you know about tithe and offering?" And I was like, "No." And I just didn't know. And he explained to me what I needed to do. So it was very easy for me to tithe at that point.
I see.
Because my tithe was $12 a week. and so I think that plays into what you're saying now with someone who's just starting out, and you establish that habit of wanting to tithe and tithing when you have little, and then you're able to easily tithe and transition into more because it becomes a habit and a discipline for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So after you do that, I have a nephew who's a musician, and he's very dear to my heart. So when you asked me about coming today, I was like, absolutely, yes. The first thing you want to do as a musician, you really want to open a checking account. And the reason you want to open a check account is because I know for my nephew that a lot of the transactions come in cash. You may get a deposit, and it could be split. You want to make sure that you're managing that money. The easiest way for money to flee your hands is cash money. Holding on to that
so
cash.
True. That's true.
Get it out of your hands. Something will come up. Someone will stop by.
Yeah.
So you really need to make sure that the money is deposited in an account. And then you need to figure out with your vision, right, how much of your money you want to contribute to savings. How much of the money you want to contribute to investing. And I use the principle of the 10% as a minimum for my savings as when I first got started. So what you want to do is I said, hey, if God said it works for the church, then it must work for my household as well. So basically what I do is I ensure that I'm saving a minimum of that 10% as well out of every single check. And then you manage the money in the middle.
Wow. So then you need a checking account. Would you use the checking account to save your money?
Oh, no. See, what happens when you use that checking account to save your money is that you really can't tell what the difference is. And sometimes we'll even allow ourselves to think about it a little bit different because there may be a purchase that we want to make, that we really want to make, and we may not allow ourselves that flexibility. So a savings account should be separate from the checking account, and you should open both at the same time if possible.
So checkings and savings.
A checking and a savings account, absolutely. And then you want to have your savings account at an institution where you don't need a debit card for a savings account either.
Okay.
So you get it?
Yeah.
Because it's a savings. It's not for short-term usage. And by putting the money in an account, and sometimes it's a credit union account, there's not one on every block, right? You have to be intentional about going to a credit union. So you want to have it at an institution where it's inconvenient to go and get the money.
I see.
Absolutely. And I know online banking is out there as well, so it takes discipline.
Yeah. So a vision, charitable giving,
Yes.
checking account, savings account. So I'm saving 10% every check. I'm giving 10%. And then where do I go? What's next?
Yeah. So back to your vision board, right?
All right.
Yeah. So what is it that I want to accomplish? I could be saving for a down payment on a car, a down payment on a home. So you make those decisions based on that. Of course, you take care of all of your household expenses. You can't get around those things as well.
I see.
But you want to go back and let your vision board be your guide.
I see.
And it all connects back.
So let's say I wanted to, I don't know, by the time I was 25, buy a house.
Yes.
Then that would be on my vision board, and then I would like start saving towards that now. So that would be outside of the 10% I already saved. I would like put money specifically aside for that.
That's right. So the 10% as a new musician, you want to make sure you're putting that aside and building your emergency fund.
Okay.
As a minimum. You may be able to do more. And then for a long-term goal, such as buying a house, you want to have your vision board, maybe a picture of the house that you would love to purchase. And then also with that, you want to determine what's the amount of the down payment that I need.
I see.
And then divide that. You want to do it in 5 years, divide that by 60. And then begin to save toward that monthly.
I see.
Yeah, it's a process.
I see. Now, you just mentioned emergency fund.
Yes.
So how much is an emergency fund, and is that the savings account that we talked about, the 10% going towards that? That's, so.
Right. So for someone starting out at 20 years old, then absolutely that's the 10% going towards your emergency fund. And after you establish your emergency fund, then you can establish other investment opportunities as well. But getting started, you want to make sure that you have your emergency fund in place as your first savings account.
I see.
Without an emergency fund, regular expenses could just, set you back.
So you think $1,000 would be a good number, 2,500, or does it depend? How do you figure that number?
It does. It totally depends. So you look at your expenses, and then you want to have an emergency fund of at least 4 to 6 times your monthly expenses. So that if an emergency comes up, then what you can do is you can survive for the next 4 to 6 months.
Wow, 4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months
of an emergency fund that's just set aside that you don't touch just in case of an emergency.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
That's exactly right. Most people, 64% of Americans, if they have an emergency of more than $1,000, they depend on other people to meet their needs. So that's the importance of the emergency fund, is so that you can be independent and meet your own financial needs.
I see. Wow. Wow. Now, what about like retirement stuff, investment stuff? You hear these letters and numbers: 401k, IRA, pension things. How does all that relate to this 20-year-old musician?
Absolutely. So start where you are.
Okay. And
absolutely start immediately with your investment portfolio. And you can do that at a local banking institution as well. What you want to do is, in your vision board, how much money do you want to have when you retire? And the good thing about starting at 20 is compounding interest. And time is the very best thing about compounding interest. So if you start at 20 versus starting at 40, it makes a big difference in your savings, and you really own, from a financial standpoint, the latter years of your life. You decide when you want to retire. It doesn't matter that you can draw Social Security at the age of 67 and you have to work until the end, but if you start investing at the age of 20, then it may be the age of 50 that you're ready to retire. So starting early is the key, and that's another reason why I totally commend the 20-year-old for getting this right. And I see so many millennials who are investing, who are getting it right, and that's so encouraging.
So you would, so you say go to our local branch, bank branch, and look into their investment opportunities there.
Yeah, and you have to understand, like, what are their minimums to open, and they'll share with you the program that they're most favorable of, and then you also want to explore. Well, tell me about another program, so that you can make your own decision and not just hear about a single program that's available.
Okay.
Because there are many options out there today.
So, if I got it all right, so
let's check.
Vision, giving,
yes,
checking,
yes,
savings, well, emergency fund, savings, emergency fund.
yes.
And continually checking back to the vision board for other things that need to be done, and then retirement options through your bank. And now we didn't. Can you tell us the difference between an IRA here and a 401k or?
Yeah, so they're both investment options, and the 401k is typically pre-tax. There are some post-tax that's available too. So in a 401k, when it's pre-tax, it reduces your taxable income, which is another benefit of the 401k. Most of those are offered by corporations. And many times musicians don't have that flexibility to do the 401k, and that's when the IRA comes in, which is post-tax. But the beauty of the IRA that's post-tax is that it's already taxed, so you gain. You don't have to pay once you get ready to pull money out. You don't have to pay the interest on that money, unlike the 401k when you're ready to take it out. So there are benefits to it. And for the more seasoned musician who's been around a little bit longer, you want to have both. You want to have that, what we call a retail account, which is post-taxes, just in case you want to make some early investments before. In many 401k plans, you have to be 59 and a half to withdraw from it or take a penalty. But if you have that retail account, like the IRA account, then that helps because you could use that to bridge the gap until you get to the other phase.
I see. Okay.
So,
wow. So for a musician, IRA, but then also 401k. So both.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then the spouse may be in corporate America, right? So you really want to, as a family unit, put the two together and maximize the 401k.
I see.
And then in many cases, when you have a working spouse, you can also contribute through your payroll deductions for the IRA as well.
Okay, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
so you never even see the money, and the risk of spending it elsewhere is mute.
All right, so let me make sure I understood you correctly. So for us musicians who are mainly independent contractors, so the IRA is the choice for us.
Absolutely.
And if you're working in corporate America, then probably 401k is the choice for you.
Absolutely. And then other institutions also have, for outside of corporate America, have access to a 401k as well.
Okay, wow. Now let's shift scenarios a little bit. Let's jump ahead to maybe like 35.
Oh wow.
Which is like
15 years later. So much has transpired, right?
Yeah. So the scenario is I'm 35 now. I'm married with children. I did a little college, so I have debt. I maybe might have a house, so I have some debt. And I have a little bit in the savings. I have maybe 10 grand in a savings account somewhere. What do I need to be focused on?
You're living the American dream, right? 2.5 kids, probably?
Well, sure.
Absolutely. So the focus really ties back to the vision board. It doesn't
back
matter.
to the vision board.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter where you are in your life. That vision board is so important.
I see.
But as a 35-year-old, you also have your life experiences, and you want to take a look back and understand, some of the decisions that you've made, and evaluate those decisions and make changes in your plan as well. And it's a good check-in point to do this to check in annually, just like you do for your annual visits to your doctor. Sure. You want to have annual financial checkups as well. So it's extremely important to do that. And of course, January, it's a great time of the year to do it when you're getting ready to set new goals.
So you're saying sit down as a family and talk about these goals, or sit down with a financial planner and talk about it? Where will we do this checkup? Yeah,
so you start at home first.
Okay.
And the two of you sit down and you walk through, hey, what are the things what's on your heart? What would you like to accomplish this year?
I see.
Yeah, and let's look at what we had thought about doing for our long-term goals. Are those things still important to you? And you have that discussion. You get on the same page as a couple first. And then absolutely it would be great to talk to a financial advisor to get more information. There's wisdom in counsel.
Wow. So at 40 now, or 35, the world looks a little different. You're thinking more about retirement and not working. Yes. So are there any differences? Well, let me ask this way. What are the differences between the focus from the 20-year-old who's walking this financial plan out and the 35-year-old who's married with kids now and some debt? What is the difference?
Yeah. So the vision probably becomes a little bit clearer around retirement at the age of 35 than it was for a 20-year-old.
Sure.
And you're thinking like, okay, now I've been in corporate America or working as a musician for the last 15 years. And do I want to do this for another 10 years or do I want to do it for another 15 years? So you're looking at those type scenarios. And this is where the financial advisor or even some of the online tools can really help you to determine what does it take for me to reach my retirement goal. Back to that vision board to understand what the retirement goal is. Many people plan for retirement and says, hey, I don't want a house payment in retirement. So you make a plan for that. I want to have, say, $3,000 a month in income in retirement. So the financial planner or the online tools, you can use that to bridge the gap and understand what it takes to accomplish that goal. And that's really how you make the goal a reality, is building a plan between where you are now and where you want to be. And the good news is that that plan is a 15-year plan or a 20-year plan.
Wow.
So you can break those savings across that 15-year period. That's 180 months.
Yeah.
And which really gives you small bites and a great way to approach it.
Wow. You know, as I think about it, and as I've been getting older, and I look around at the musicians around me, you know, you don't see really, really old musicians, you know, playing, you know, it's also younger guys.
Kind of like athletes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we're still, the older guys are still around, but not as prevalent as the younger guys. So that what you just gave about how to prepare for retirement and prepare for not playing, at least not in the same arena, is really, really important. Now,
that makes it even more important, the fact that the lifespan of a musician is much shorter.
Sure.
So that's another reason to really be intentional about your planning.
So for the 35-year-old with debt, what can you give us like a quick synopsis on how to handle debt? What is your philosophy on debt?
Yeah. So some people say there's good debt and there's bad debt, but and I believe that, right?
Okay.
If you need a home and you somewhere to live, that can be considered good debt. You're making a house payment, but you have a plan to pay it off.
I see.
And there's some smart tools around how you want to approach it. Like 30-year mortgages, in my mind, that means you can't afford that house. If you have to put it on a 30-year mortgage, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, look for shorter terms, 15 years. Same for a vehicle. If you're financing a car for 10 years, that just means you can't afford it. Because if you could afford it, you could put it on 5 years and make that payment, or 3 years and make that payment. But that's a convenience factor, and it's a way to pay twice as much for that car than what you would normally pay for it.
Wow.
And it's a trick, really. But we do like looking good in those fine cars, right?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. So, do you suggest, like in paying these things, so for the big purchase like a home and car, try to get the smallest time frame?
Absolutely.
What about stuff that's like student loans?
Oh, wow.
Maybe you got some tax stuff that's back pay. It's just payments that have to be made for. How do you handle those?
Absolutely. So you want to have a budget. And a budget is extremely important to understand what it is, what your obligations are, and to complete an assessment. So you want to just outline, hey, here are the things, here are my debts, and here are the balances, and here are the interest rates on those balances. Okay. So that you're clear on what they are, and then you want to take those debts and look at how do I eliminate the debt, right? And the best overall approach is to use the interest rate, and those debts with the highest interest rate, you want to pay those off first. And you do that simply by paying more on the debt monthly to get rid of it. And then once you pay off one debt, there's this principle called the snowball effect. You take the next money and the next debt with the highest interest rate and begin to pay toward that particular debt.
I see.
Yeah, it takes discipline to do it. And sometimes you have to look for a quick win too, right? So everybody can't be disciplined out the gate. So then a quick win would be, you might want to look at the balance. And if you have a debt with maybe $300 on it, in order to get some momentum going.
Just knock it on out.
Just knock it out. Pay that one off and then take those funds and start contributing towards something else as well.
Okay. Wow. So for the budget that you mentioned, that's good for everybody, right?
Everybody. That's exact.
And the budget's just analyzing how much you make and the expenses per month?
Yeah, you really want to just understand where the money is going.
Okay.
And you should be able to account for 99.9%. Maybe that Coke or something, you don't know what happened to that money, but you should be able to account for it.
Wow, 99.9% of your
Yeah.
finances. That's fine. In our household, we give grades.
Yes.
So I have this thing where I think of my household as a corporation,
I
and
love
I say if I'm the chief financial officer, how would I grade myself? Would I fire me or would I hire me? And so I like that, your idea as well, being accountable for 99.9%. It's kind of the same idea.
Yeah.
You want to be super accountable for your money.
So what grade are you earning?
Let's see, maybe a B right now.
A B? That's really good.
Maybe B.
So that's the grade you're giving yourself. What about your spouse? What grade is she giving you? Now that's the tough question.
That's a different story. Good question. Okay, well, we're almost out of time. So if you had one overarching piece of advice to share with musicians of every grade, age, what would that be?
Yeah, it would be start now. Don't think about I can't do it now or put it off till tomorrow or next year. Start today. Use what you have and begin to make a difference. Putting it off just delays the issue, and it's no way around it. We have to be financially savvy, and if you need help, get help as well to develop your plan. Believe me, just the fact that you're thinking of it as a young or an older musician, it speaks volumes to who you are as a person. So start now. Take advantage of it.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Miriam. We really, really appreciate you. And I'm sure the musicians watching this, their lives will be changed for the better. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Wow, that was a lot of information she gave, and I hope it really helped you. So let's take hold of it. Like, watch this multiple times, take in what she said, and let's apply it to our finances, guys. Because I don't want to see any of us, hurting for money because of our poor choices in managing it. All right. So thank y'all so much for watching this video. Again, my name is Corey Taylor from SkilledMusician.com, where we're helping musicians improve. So hopefully this video has helped you improve. Until the next time, be blessed and happy practicing.